How do? My name is Andrew Hancock and I am a VMware technical architect from Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. I have worked with VMware since their birth in 1998, so that's been a quarter of a century now. I've been working with the VMware product catalogue. Some of my close friends say if you cut Andy in half, it reads VMware like a stick of rock from Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I have now written over 130 articles and recorded over 30 hours of VMware vSphere 7 and 8 videos for Experts Exchange, and received 40 Expert Exchange awards over the last 11 years working with the Expert Exchange community. I am currently the overall #1 point earner in the Hall of Fame. I am honoured to have been accepted into the VMware vExpert program since 2011, and I'm currently a VMware vExpert Pro for the last 4 years. Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Hancock's VMware Half Hour. Anyway, an exciting day today because today we're going to enable vSAN in our home lab EE cluster. Now, I have been sat here for probably the best part of 2 hours, maybe 3 hours now, because I'd had hoped basically to get this started earlier. But I was actually having a few issues with vCenter server because I was unable to do anything in networking, distributed networking, or even standard networking. I couldn't edit or make any changes. So I've been meaning to do this for a while, really, because it's been bugging me. So I actually increased the vCenter server to 4 cores, and I actually basically increased the memory to 20 gig. Obviously, I had to shut down vCenter server to do that, and then restarted vCenter server. And that restart seems to have been able to give me the ability to actually edit network settings. And the reason I wanted to do this, and I'll quickly show you, I have done it on the previous 2 servers, because I wanted to, you may remember in the last video that I did, which was setting up the VDS, I mentioned that I actually wanted to tag or select or enable services on these new VM kernels that we've created in our VDS. So VMK5, I want to now nominate as vMotion. And new one here, if you're setting up a VMware vSphere vSAN, is to actually basically tag a vSAN enabled services on VMK6, which is for our vSAN traffic. Now, I just want to make completely clear here, this is a home lab. So if it all goes terribly wrong, it goes up in smoke, we lose stuff, it's not a problem. Be very careful in using vSAN in production and ensure that you're either using vSAN ready nodes, which are certified for use with VMware vSphere vSAN, or if you're not using VMware vSAN ready nodes, ensure that your hardware is certified not only for VMware vSphere, but also for vSAN. Otherwise, again, as I've mentioned, if you try and reach out to support, they may decide not to support you because you're not running on a certified platform. So I just wanted to make that completely clear. In our home lab here, 7, 9, and 11 are Dell Power Edges that are all off the hardware compatibility list. So the fact that they've all dropped off the hardware compatibility list makes our VMware vSphere vSAN environment not compatible either, or not certified. The Intel Optane devices that we're using, I'd have to check whether or not that they are certified, but certainly the hosts are, certainly the controllers are. So this is a home lab, it's not production, and we're doing this for shits and giggles. So I just want to make that completely obvious. In the last video for VDS, I did actually put a link to the Bible, the design guide. If you are actually basically doing this in production, it's well worth you reading that design guide once or twice. And also, trying to find me books. Also, I've got a couple of books. I'll try and dig them out. Oh, hang on, got one here. Sorry, apologies. Shout out to these guys, Duncan Epping, Cormac Hogan, and Peter Collier. I think I've got his name right. If I haven't, sorry, Peter. This one's VMware. You probably maybe can't see it. I'll put a link in the description. But this one's VMware vSAN 8.0U1 Express Storage Architecture. That's 8, and I've got another one over here. If I can just get to all this rubbish over here. Apologies. And this one here, again by Duncan Epping and Cormac Hogan. This one is the VMware vSAN 7.0 U3 Deep Dive. If there's 2 books you're going to buy as a VMware admin, get these 2. They are well worth the money. You can get them as ebooks. They're available from that well-known bookstore online. So plugs over. Again, thanks so much, Simon Tobb. Thanks so much, Matt Mancini, for the Intel Optane demo units that we received from Intel that allow us to build this lab. So, onward. And hopefully this isn't going to take us too long. So, we've enabled our vMotion and vSAN services. Earlier on, I did basically, just for belts and braces, go back to our switch. And I just basically quickly checked that all the links were up, so I can do a show LACP info, and that actually basically shows me that all my trunks are up, all my LACP's working, my status is up. And I also basically just quickly did some pings again. I did actually do all that testing that I said that I'd do in the last video to ensure that all the iterations and all the different combinations that could ping each other, so all our networking hopefully is sound. So there's nothing more for us to do today than basically to go through the wizard and configure a VMware vSphere vSAN. But the first thing we need to do is I'm going to go to ESXi 007, and you may actually notice that I've already created a couple of data stores on these devices. Now we're going to have to erase these data stores, and I just want to quickly use that it's interesting there because that's actually got VMware vCenter Server 7. Okay, it's not actually on there. It must have been on there at some point and I vMotioned it off. Okay, so I just want to check that I'm not actually going to erase anything. So I'm going to go to configure. I'm going to go to storage devices, and I'm going to erase the partitions on I'm just actually keeping an eye on the bottom of the screen there to see if I get any error messages. So I'm erasing the partitions on those data stores. So hopefully now those 2 data stores probably going to disappear, or they're probably going to come back and say inaccessible. It's interesting. They no longer exist. They will probably disappear, or they'll come back and say inaccessible. Probably should have deleted the data stores first before just whacking the partitions. So I'm going to do the same on 9. I've got test 10, test 11, test 6, and test 7. So let's do it the proper way. Let's just mount the data store. And I'm just checking as I go here that I think I've got 1 VM on 1 data store that I want to keep at the moment. There you go. You can see that test 7's come back as inaccessible now because I just whacked it with no thought. Got a locker file there interesting on that one. Wonder if that's going to give me locker files are normally because I've used them for logging. So we're going to do the same on test 4. I'm going to unmount it. Now we'll look at test 3. I'm going to unmount it. This is the proper way to do it. Removing partitions, ripping them out from under the host operating system. Never really a good idea. Okay, again, unmount data store. And I think test 10 is the one that I want to keep at the moment because I've actually got some files on there, some docs, and we'll put docs on the data store. and I've got a virtual machine that I want to create. And I think these two are unavailable now anyway, so they're probably going to be error messages. Yeah, they will. Lots of error messages. I know. I'm just going to go back over here. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go back to our configure. I'm going to look at our storage devices. That's still saying it's got a data store on it, which is interesting. So I thought we'd erase them. So let's just say erase partitions. Yeah. If we don't erase the partitions, the VMware vSAN, VMware vSphere vSAN wizard is not going to be able to claim them. So again, I'm not going to touch test 10, but I am going to remove the partitions on here. So I'm going to erase the partitions there, test 11, test 7, test 6. And I'm going to erase the partitions on these 4 disks as well. Now, currently I've got 4 Intel Optane devices in 9. I've got 4 Optane devices in 9, and I've got 2 Optane devices in 11. It's interesting. One failed to update the partition information on one of those disks. Okay, we can come back to that later, because what we can do. Okay, so not consume, not consume, not consume. Just wonder whether that is this one here. No, to change. I'll have to have a little look at that later. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to see if we can add 2 devices from each server, a capacity device from each server, and a caching device from each server. So that's 6 in total, and then later on we'll add the others. Anyway, so how do we enable our VMware vSAN? So we right click our cluster, because our vSAN is specific to the cluster. So the hosts in that cluster will be part of our vSAN data store. We click configure. And I'm going to select a single site cluster. Yeah, let's do a bit of deduplication and compression, because, you know, we are all flash here. I'm going to click next. Now, this is where we actually basically start looking at our disks that we're going to claim. So this is actually going to show me our, I wish I could move this just a bit out of my view. So this is actually going to show us the number of disks available in all our hosts to claim for our vSAN. And we claim them for a capacity device and a caching device per server. So ESXi007, I've only got 2 devices in here. So I'm going to claim the first one as a caching tier, and I'm going to claim the second one as a capacity. So that's ESXi007. I'm going to do exactly the same with ESXi009. I'm going to click a caching tier, and I'm going to click a capacity tier. Now, a cache tier always has to be flash. You can't use hard drive HDD as a caching tier. Capacity tier, you can use a HDD if you wish. So I'm going to now move on to number 11, and I'm going to click a caching tier, and I'm going to click a capacity tier. So I'm going to use 6 devices in total, and it's telling us that the total claim is 2 terabytes. Again, these are 375 gigabyte individual Intel Optane devices, and I'm going to click next. So we will add the other devices later, and I'll look at that issue that we've got with one of the flash devices and in the partition as well. So I'm going to click next. So we're going to create a single site cluster for dedupe and compression. We're not going to bother with data at rest encryption, allow redundancy. We're not going to do traffic encryption. It's all flash. So we're going to have a 1 terabyte vSAN data store. and a total vSAN database cache of 1 terabyte. And I'm going to click finish. And hopefully, if all goes right, now there was a failure there. Okay. So I'm just going to have to disable. My bad. You can clearly see the reason why there. We need to turn off HA. So I'm just going to basically turn off HA. And you can actually basically just quickly see it there, turning off HA. And actually basically for some strange reason there, it struggled with one of the disks. Can't see a vSAN data store that's appeared there. So let's just try that again. Might need to go through and validate and check. Let's just try this again. vSAN configure, single site, dedupe compression. I know what, let's just say none for the moment. You can trash and rebuild later. Let's just go back again and select capacity tier, caching tier, capacity tier, caching tier, number 11, capacity tier, caching tier, capacity, followed by next, followed by finish. I'm hoping that we see a lot of progress bars, updating vSAN configuration, and a vSAN data store appears. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to migrate, although I might actually basically do a clone actually, belts and braces, clone this desktop here from what I think is an Intel Optane device already to our vSAN data store. So at the moment we're completed. So I saw those complete there, updating the vSAN configuration, but we've still got some reconfiguration going on down here, reconfiguring the cluster. And at the moment I still don't see a vSAN data store here, so we're still thinking about it. So while we're still thinking about it, just let me grab a coffee and disappear, and I'll come back shortly. So there we have it. Painless, he says. I was just looking at this, checking the compliance of the cluster, but this is the remediation of the image. Okay, so there's our vSAN data store, and surprisingly, other than that initial turn off HA and that initial blip on one of the Intel Optane drives, I'm going to go and check. And you may notice that when I actually basically went and did the claiming the disks, I actually chose a different disk. Maybe there is an issue with that one. Maybe the partitions have not been removed correctly. So I'll have a little look at that later. So 20 minutes in, not quite half an hour, and we have a vSAN data store. Now I wanted to show you a couple of things about vSAN. If we go to our EE cluster, we've now got a vSAN overview health check, which really what we're actually looking for is that we've got a lovely tick and a green OK, but we can have a little look at the details in Skyline Health, and I'm actually blown away, actually, and I'm a bit surprised because this is the first time that I've actually, apart from the HA, this is the first time that I've actually, apart from the HA and apart from that dodgy question mark disk, which may just be a partition issue. But this is actually the very first time that I've actually created a vSAN, and it's gone swimmingly well, and the hosts all pass. So you can actually, so if you've not used Skyline Health, which is a free service from VMware that is a bit like a free VMware Consultant that's basically looking at your VMware vSphere infrastructure and advising you of patches and issues and VMware knowledge base articles that you basically need to apply. But this is like a cut down version of Skyline Health, which is specific to VMware vSAN. So at the moment, it's actually basically saying that, you know, we're in the green with absolutely everything. There is nothing wrong at all with our environment, and we can click retest here and it will go off, and so we can retest with online health. This might find some things. This might actually basically turn around and tell us that we've got some issues. HCLs, I would think, is probably going to pop up. So we can look at, we can look at the capacity. So there's our 24 gig currently in use, 1 terabyte free. We can look at performance information, not that there's any available, and we can go to configure, and let's have a little look at some services that we can enable. I'm going to have a little look and see whether or not that we'll enable the performance services are enabled. It was network diagnostic mode that I wanted to enable, so that's enable diagnostic mode for the moment. And we can look at disk management, so we can look at all our disks that make up part of our cluster. So we've got 2 of 2, 2 of 3, 2 of 3 that are in use, and we could claim those unused disks, but we'll do that later. So what I wanted to do is let's start using it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clone this virtual machine. So I'm going to basically call it desktop IK3 T83SA, and I'm going to use our vSAN datastore. So this is the first time out. Don't know whether it's going to crash, fall over, disappear. So just going to clone. So did a typo in there, I put equals, but I'll rename that afterwards. So this is actually cloning from an Intel Optane standard VMFS data store to our vSAN data store. So I'm going to wait for that to complete, speed this up in post, and I'll come back shortly. Okay, so I'm back, and we did manage to successfully migrate desktop, which had a equal sum, but I've renamed it. We did manage to successfully migrate desktop IKS T83S, which is Windows 10 P2V that I've done, which is a normal machine that I actually use, and I'll explain that in a minute. So this is the one that we've actually migrated now to our vSAN data store, and I've powered it up. It's all working. But one of the things I actually wanted to draw your attention to is these. If we actually go to monitor vSAN under Skyline Health, virtual objects, resyncing objects, and proactive tests, and we click run tests, we can actually basically do some very, very basic tests to check that our environment that we built, our vSAN environment that we built, is all working correctly. And you can quickly see there, you might have just noticed that it created several virtual machines, 3 virtual machines very, very quickly on those hosts. We can do a net performance test. It's a little bit slower than I anticipated. I actually thought it might be nearer 9,000. And we can do some storage performance tests, which I'm going to do later using a HCI bench, which is a fling, which is available to download from VMware. So just wanted to do for shits and giggles, a really not really very scientific, just to show you the benefit of Intel Optane. I shall put some links in the description of this video that explains what Intel Optane is all about, how it works, why Intel Optane is faster than traditional flash. All I've done is just run Crystal Diskmark 8 on this virtual machine, which is now living on our vSAN data store, and these are the figures that I get. Again, Crystal Diskmark is not exactly very scientific. We're going to dig a little bit deeper when we start looking at HCI bench, and this is actually leading into what I said that I was going to do, was build a VMware Horizon environment using Windows 10. And I might actually potentially use this particular machine here as the VDI that I'm going to use. So we're going to have a little look at putting together VMware Horizon, how we configure Horizon. Horizon is going to live in this infrastructure on our Intel Optane. And if I can also easily try and leverage some of the vGPUs that I've got in these boxes as well, then we'll try that as well. So thanks very much for watching. I think we've probably may have gone over 30 minutes just. So again, thanks so much for watching this video in how to create a VMware vSphere vSAN using Intel Optane technology. Again, my thanks to Simon Todd, my thanks to Matt Mancini for arranging the Intel Optane demo units as part of the vExpert program. Come back soon, because I'm going to show you a few bits and bobs. We'll go back and we'll basically look at those other disks that we've got lying around on our lab here. We'll claim those disks, we'll add them to the vSAN data store as well, so you can see how to do that. And then we'll have a little look at HCI bench, how we deploy HCI bench, how we use HCI bench, look at some pretty pictures just to kind of really show off, you know, what these Intel Optane devices do and how fast they are. And I'm not going to mention anything about the figures. You can look at those figures yourself, and you can see that those read speeds and write speeds are, you know, again, absolutely fantastic. You know, and as I actually sort of kind of said, I think in a tweet, you know, this whole Intel Optane thing, you know, and vSAN and Horizon View actually basically makes me very excited indeed. Again, so thank you very much for watching, and come back soon to another Hancock's VMware half hour. Thank you.